I've risen, and I'm taking the final step. It's alright, 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 it's alright. Strikes given. It's easier to forget.
Blast from the past. This is Bad Company 2. This was one of my favorite games back in the day. This was basically the first Battlefield game I got really into. It was basically one of my first modern day shooters that I got super into. So before this, I really just played things like Team Fortress 2, and that's where I basically honed most of my shooting skills and played with friends, and they sort of taught me the ropes of how you play first-person shooters, and it was just an all-around amazing game, which, speaking of Team Fortress 2, I'm actually hoping to make a Team Fortress 2 video soon, maybe go revisit some of those glory days and play some of that game. I really enjoyed the sniping class in that game, it was just awesome. Anyways, not to get sidetracked though, so once again, this is Bad Company 2, and I thought I'd sort of share my thoughts on how this game has evolved, or how the franchise really has evolved, and things that have changed between this game and the modern day, the present, with Battlefield 4. So, first of all, let's get right into it. So, what were some of the things that this game did right? So, this game came out during this sort of war between Call of Duty and Battlefield, the Battlefield franchise. And speaking of which, I don't really know what's happened to that war. I don't know really if it's still going on. But I just remember when, I think it was Battlefield 3 and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 were sort of coming about. There was this big old battle. Gotta admit, I thought it was pretty lame. I thought it was pretty stupid. There were fanboys on both sides. And I really believe if you're going to be a fanboy, then what's the point? When you try to say that one thing is superior over another, just because it's not constructive and it doesn't really accomplish anything. So that's my 2 cents on the matter. And don't get me wrong, I'm no fanboy of the Battlefield franchise. I mean, I do play it a lot more just because I find it more enjoyable, but I love to join a little match of COD every once in a while. They're different games, they have different feels, and they really do touch on different skill levels. Like Call of Duty is a little bit more reflex, a little bit more of a reflex shooter in my opinion. And they accomplish what the game wants to accomplish. Well, like Battlefield wants to be a team-based shooter, great. Call of Duty players, they want to be a lone wolf-based player, great. Like both those games do that. So whether you play one or the other, I don't care. They're both fun games in my opinion. But anyways, enough about that little rant right there. So, what has changed since then? First of all, you've got things like suppression. You've got all these little nitty-gritty details, little features that DICE has slowly added to their games. Suppression, of course, having been added in Battlefield 3. So, suppression, as I'm sure you all know, is basically the mechanic in the game which is supposed to mimic real-life reactions to bullets whizzing past your face. It makes your crosshairs go fuzzy, it makes your screen go sort of blurry, and it even deviated, at least in Battlefield 3, it deviated where your bullet went. Now, obviously, this was something that wasn't really widely liked in the Battlefield community. It instituted this sort of random system, and whenever you have something that's random in a game, it's not going to be liked by at least the competitive community. People that may like more realistic games like Arma, DayZ, all that stuff, probably were for this. I personally wasn't. When I play a Battlefield game, I like to, sometimes get competitive and, try hard and things like that. And when you have a system in place that is just really, you can't compensate for it, it really hurts competitive play. And it did hurt competitive play. A lot of competitive players for this game were not satisfied with that system, and they ended up basically booting it out. And now you have what you have in Battlefield 4, which is a much more watered down system of suppression, which I think is a good compromise. It keeps it in the game so that those people who want that added realism are satisfied, yet it doesn't really change. It doesn't cause that much blurriness like it did in Battlefield 3. Now, obviously, in Battlefield Bad Company 2, this wasn't an issue. There was no suppression mechanic, and it really worked. There are a lot of really good first-person shooters, modern military ones that don't have suppression, and it works. And I think when you take a formula that works really well and you try to sort of modify it, I think you really need to be careful in what you add and what you take out too. So, moving on, you've got things like weapons. So now in Battlefield 4, you have an insane amount of weapons. I gotta say, there's probably like 100. There probably is more than 100, to be honest. But you have a whole lot of weapons. And this is awesome. This is great for marketing campaigns. They can see, wow, look at all these weapons we've got. Play our game. We're the best. We're awesome. And this is true to a certain extent. I mean, it's awesome to have a lot of variety in weapons. You get to customize your play style. You get to play how you want. If you want to burst fire, great. If you want to fully auto, that's great. If you want, 10 different types of sniper rifles, each one with different rates of fire and things like that, you're covered. But one of the things I think that made Bad Company 2 so special is the fact that it didn't really have a whole lot of weapons. You had maybe 5 weapons, I'd say, in each class. And so to many people, they may say, well, where's the variety? Where can I get weapons that fit my playstyle? The thing is, these weapons were very well balanced. You had your burst fires that had good damage, that maybe were a little bit harder to control, that obviously weren't automatic, so if you go against someone automatic and hold the trigger, you're at a disadvantage. And so things like this, they just worked really well, and that's one of the things that made this game so fun, is the fact that every weapon I could use, and then I could say, this weapon is useful for this situation, and play to that weapon. And so that's something I really, really missed from the Battlefield franchises, weapons that really mattered. You don't have 10 weapons and only 3 of them being useful at all. I mean, all of the weapons in this game, they had a purpose, and it just really worked, and it was really fun. So, continuing with this idea of the mechanics of the game and the feel of the game and how it's changed over the years, Bad Company 2 was a much more slow game. You felt like this lumbering, giant, fat dude that was just running across the battlefield, and it was pretty cool. Like, you didn't have this sort of, not really parkour, like in Battlefield 4, you're not parkouring around the environment. You just feel a lot more fluid, which is cool and all. But there was sort of this charm that having this big lumbering soldier had in this game. Like, when I'm sprinting upstairs and things like that, you'll see, like, I am super slow. And, as much as many people may not like that, like, they like the feeling of sort of fluidly going around the environment, which is cool, it adds, once again, just something that's not really in a lot of games. In Call of Duty, you still have that same thing when you sort of jump over a ledge and you have that cool fluid animation, which, as I'm saying, like, is cool. I really like that, but I do miss games that just made you feel like this bulky person, and it meant that you had to be more tactical. When you move to cover, means you need to calculate, okay, how long will it take me to get from point A to point B, and will that be enough time for the enemy to kill me during that time? So it does, once again, using that word again, introduce a more tactical element to the game, which I sort of miss. But really, both games, Battlefield 4, Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3, and all the Battlefields ever made, they all have different things that work for them and that make them fun. Now, as I'm sort of winding down here, I just realized I almost forgot one of the best things about Bad Company 2, which was the amazing Vietnam DLC. You talk to anyone that played this game, they definitely got the Vietnam DLC. It was just an all-out amazing game, edition, I guess you call it. But basically, it was during the time when I think Black Ops 2 had just released, Black Ops 1 had just released, and there was all this craze about Vietnam. There were like jokes and stuff on Steam about, I think there's like a game called Magica, and it had a Vietnam DLC. Just everyone was all crazy about Vietnam, and Bad Company 2 was no different. They released their Vietnam DLC, and it was just amazing. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. The weapons, everything felt authentic. The weapons looked rusty and they had dirt and grime and stuff all on them. The scopes had fingerprints and things. Just the aesthetics, the atmosphere that DICE was able to make with that DLC was absolutely amazing, and it was just a beautiful game. Or I keep calling it a game. It felt like a full game, yet it was just a DLC. So props to them for that, and I am looking forward to the day when DICE revisits that, just makes an amazing DLC just like that again, that just completely, like, I think it redefined the franchise. Like, it was just completely awesome. But unfortunately, alas, we have no new Vietnam DLCs most likely coming out for Battlefield 4, but hopefully in the future we will see some. So another thing not a whole lot of people may know about is the fact that actually destruction was purposefully sort of nerfed in Battlefield 3 and a little bit in Battlefield 4 as well. So in Bad Company 2, when you shot a grenade and things at walls, you could make these really cool little holes and incisions and stuff in the map, which is really cool, but I think it was a little bit overboard, and once again DICE was trying to go for a more realistic vibe with their game, and so when you have these giant explosions from grenades and things like that in real life really don't tear holes in walls, I think they sort of took a step back and said, hey, this is a little crazy. And that may have been true, but I also believe that when you make a game, you need to make sure it's fun, things like that, and Bad Company 2 certainly fun in regards to that. So debatably that was a good or bad thing, but it was something that was changed and that will probably stay changed, but we'll see. Seeing as Bad Company 3, there have been a few little announcements here and there about that game making a return, and so who knows, maybe DICE will come back and sort of revisit that crazy destruction, damage models, and things like that. So we don't really know yet. But with regards to this game, as this video is wrapping up, unfortunately, its future is undecided, seeing as the GameSpy servers are being shut down due to, I think, monetary financial concerns. GameSpy, I think maybe it already shut down, but on May 31st, all GameSpy servers will be shut down. That means things like Battlefront 2, all the past Battlefield games except for Battlefield 3 and 4, I believe. All games like that. There's a whole list on if you go on GameSpy's website. Basically, they're all going to be either transitioning to things like Steamworks and new server things, or they'll just sort of be left out in the dust. So like for example, Crysis 1 and 2, which I'm actually a little bit bummed about, their multiplayer will no longer be supported. We'll see if maybe community-made servers will be maintained or something like that, but I doubt it. Hopefully people can make mods and things and mod servers and still play those games that way and just have that option. But anyways, that's about it for today, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave me a comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff if you so desire. And I'll see you guys next time.